crowd is already very big. By the end of the day, nearly 200,000 people will have watched this race, and of course many more.
Ja, het is heel mooi weer, gelukkig voor het publiek, hè.
Wat is de taak van landbouwkrediet vandaag?
Nou, we hebben met Bert Verkeers en Frederik en Modderson hebben we twee jongens die heel goed bezig zijn op het moment. En ik denk dat buitenkantje Lara iedereen moet aan.
Het zijn allemaal jongens die iets willen tonen en niet gewoon willen binnenrijden. En het is echt ons taak om ofwel er alle energie in te steken. Het kan zijn dat dat niet lukt, maar dat je wel met 400 kilometer leeg zit en afstapt. Dus dat is wel de filosofie.
Veel succes vandaag.
Zoveel volk staat te kijken, dat is toch een andere belevenis als de andere koersen. Dus iedereen is zo zenuwachtig.
Wat is jouw opdracht vandaag?
Chavanel die opkomt. Dat is die van Chavanel, de Fransman.
Hoe is het met uw vrouw?
Ja, Chavanel.
Is daar niks mee aan de hand? Die was zo een beetje zoals ik aangekomen.
En maar heeft hij van?
Ja, die is wel zwanger.
En hoe is het met de kat?
Die lijkt zwanger.
Dat is goed.
2 years, she's 2 years a fan of you.
Yeah, it's really good.
How's the condition? How do you feel right now?
I feel quite good and it's going to be interesting to see how it be today. But I feel good this morning, so hopefully we're strong.
Thank you and good luck today. Edwin Boostenhagen. Een beetje gesukkeld met de gezondheid, maar het is beter. En hier is Jurgen Roeland. Jurgen Roeland, een beetje onder indruk van het volk hier.
Ja, het staat toch een open.
Is een hoop, hè? Bijna 10.000. Bijna 10.000.
Ja, maar ja, het is bijna eigenlijk een voetbalmatch.
Leef, ja. Het is zeker het is schandalig wat ik nu ga vragen, maar doe je bril eens af. Hoe ziet dat eruit? Ja, het is ook een beetje paars. Hier een hechting over 2 centimeter, een klein Hitlersnorretje, een korstje. Maar al bij al valt het nog mee, vind ik.
Dus inderdaad, het is al een heel stukje beter dan dinsdag. Ik heb er nogal met tand.
Mark? No? Meerbeke. Yes. Ik ga voor in de Meerbeke. Good luck today, Fabia Cancellara. Ja, Mark? Sven, een minuutje nog. Oké. Dames en heren, Filippo Pozzato. Yeah!
Not go to Switzerland. Fabian Cancellara is the defending champion. He's already advertised the fact he wants to win this race for a second successive year.
2 minuten.
I think we need to look nearer home, perhaps the Tom Bonen, but why?
Beaucoup de succès aujourd'hui. Merci beaucoup. Fabien. Filippo Pozzato. Go, 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 people! Karel, waar is dat feestje? Lees ik van hieruit. En hier zijn de Belgische kampioens.
We werden een beetje opgehouden.
Kom maar, jongen!
Vandaar dat we wel laten zijn.
Maar dan slip je er soms eens tussendoor ook.
Altijd moet dat zijn.
Af en toe moet dat. Als
Leef,
deze
kom maar, jongen!
voor de grote koers.
Dames en heren, dat is het ons moment. Brugge! Beetje die vorm! Ik heb een kleine primeur voor u. Op dit moment wordt er gefilmd met die camera. Dus Brugge, zware Vlaanderen!
The gun goes off. These are earlier as the riders moving away out of the Grote Markt, or the Great Market, the big marketplace, beautiful square here, famous now for the film made a couple of years ago in Bruges. This is where it was all filmed, and the riders in no hurry to get out of town. You can see from the aerial shots from the helicopter what a beautiful town this is. It's the capital of the lace industry, but it really is one of Belgium's big sporting and big tourist attractions.
Well, in the medieval times, this city actually used to be on the coast, but then the area silted up, and in fact, Zeebrugge, which is the twin name, is actually on the coast, and I think that's why this town has been so well preserved, because it never was subjected to the development of the modern world.
The champion of Belgium, we caught a glimpse of him there, Stein de Volder. Watch out for him, he's got a good reputation in this event, but he's the first cyclist in Belgium to win in the same year both the national time trial and the national road race titles.
Leif Hoster having a few early problems, and best place to have these early problems. Philippe Gilbert there, Phil, sporting a rather new radio. I suppose a good thing to look at as he's riding alongside Radio Shack on the far side, and it looks like McEwen.
Well, they're still under neutralised formation as they head out towards Outer Ring Road, and then they'll be underway, and Cancellara, one of the last riders to sign in, has finally been brought through the field towards the front here. I didn't see the rider in the front, but it might well have been Stuart O'Grady. He's the man designated to look after, in fact it's Dominique Clemmer who was the man. But O'Grady is the man that Cancellara will rely on as they get into the tough section of this course.
Well, O'Grady is a man who's been down on the ground so many times throughout his career, but he's always been able to bounce himself back up to the top of his form, and he is very dedicated today, Phil, to Fabian Cancellara. This whole team today taking part in the Ronde en Flanders.
Hosters, ja.
Daar. Hey, kom maar. Nog Smits. Cavendish er. Dat is goed. Hoste.
.31 miles an hour before these boys finally got clear. Hunt, Hammond, Van Dijk and Mitchell Docker in the breakaway.
Well, it's good to see Jeremy Hunt getting himself in.
Het was op een weg in Roesting. Ja, dat die bank stond van.
Wat? Het is werken, Martin en Trka.
Gewoon wel, we gaan.
Hoe jaar, Peter? Is die bij ons geweest? Ja, super.
Ja, zijn er.
Ja, ik sta niet op.
Zeker, zoek niet. Dat is de Hammond. Pas op.
Hey, Mitchie!
Dat was van Excursie Mano. Jeremy Hunt. Je ziet alles. Ja, zijn er.
Ja?
Ja. Ja. Allemaal.
Ja, ze zijn er.
Ja. Pas op, hè. Ja. Dit was Siva. Sky.
Hey, kom maar! De hosten! De volder hier! Verkeerd! Nuyens! Hier, Boos en Haan. Hier, Thomas. Burkhardt. Nuyens. Allemaal door. Kusutski. Hier van Escatel, kijk hier. Hey, kom aan! Daar, nog een van Escatel daar. Is lek. Hey, kom aan!
Castro Hier staat er. Hier is flat. Ja, is flat. Rande pad. Hier.
bitte.
Hey, dat dacht wel verstaan, hè?
Ja, zin. Hey jongens! Kom aan! Hey! Gespakt. Hey Bobby! Jongens! Kom on Tom! Kom aan James! Kom on Gert!
Now he's only 24 years of age, but he got 5th overall in a 3-day race in this region, the Tour of West Flanders last year, and that's an indication he really loves racing in this part of the world.
Well, everybody's very keen to try and get to the cobbled climb sections of this course in the first part, and that's why you can see one or two riders splitting off the front end of the main field. That move was started by Martin Jalingi of Team Rabobank. I didn't think, looking down the Rabobank start list this morning, that it had an extremely strong team, but they are motivated for races in this part of the world. And these roads here, despite the cobbles being very dangerous, these roads that we're looking down on now, Phil, are really difficult to ride on because they're made of slabs of concrete, and you see that that line just down the right-hand side and right down the middle. There is very often what the riders call Death Valley, and it's a part where there is no cement joining the two parts, and I've seen many a rider get his wheels stuck in that and go down nastily.
Very easily done, and as I say, you've got to remain concentrated here because road conditions change very quickly in Belgium. Now normally, of course, you can only ride down this road if you're on a bicycle on those little cycle paths either side. You're not allowed to ride on the main section of highway at all by law. So it's a free day for the boys today, and as we say, there's some 600,000 spectators enjoying this because the roads invariably are extremely narrow as we head into Strijpen. And again, the riders essing underneath the church here in this lovely little town. Everybody delaying a visit into the church as the Ronde van Vlaanderen, or the Tour de Flanders, goes past. That gap is coming down alarmingly quickly.
Well, once we get into the next section of climbs, Phil, at around about 80 kilometres to go, and that's always my favourite part of the Tour of Flanders, the climb of the Oude Quaremont. That's where we'll see that time advantage, currently at around about 5.5 minutes, get axed because of the speed that the main field will want to get to the Quaremont, because everybody knows that's a very important strategic climb.
Sky, the boys in black there, that's Edvald Boysenhagen from Norway. And he's also listed amongst the men who might today, and he's in the right position. He's checking everybody that comes up on his right shoulder. They've still got this very nice split going as they get into the narrow roads for the climb.
They won't like this either because they don't mind a small group of 3, 4, 5 riders getting off the front end of the main field, but then all of a sudden when you're getting a 15, 20 man group, that is dangerous, and that's why we've seen the reaction here coming from the main field.
Well, we're not getting too much as far as the breakaway is concerned. There are 5 riders in the lead. You can see the gap has come down by just on a minute since we started. But the gap isn't so important. But as I say, they won't want to allow Hammond to go too far ahead. And Jeremy Hunt, the evergreen, Paul, he's 37 years of age. Well, he is 37 years of age right now. And he was 6th in the Tour of Qatar, so he still got in the legs. Look at this crowd here. This is roads. It won't be easy on these narrow roads here. And well, look at this, Stuart O'Grady's on the front now for Leopard Trek.
Well, he's also on the front for Fabian Cancellara because that's what he said he wanted, the Belgian champion just going through there. And that is a good indication that these riders are taking these early climbs extremely seriously. But Fabian Cancellara has already called his team Leopard Trek up to the front end of the main field.
Yes, because I don't think he likes the composition of the chase group. I don't think he'll worry over much about the front end of the race. The 5 riders clear just now, but he will be concerned. And of course he wants to keep himself away from the problems of the heart of the peloton.
Well, just going around that corner, Jez Hunt, he's ridden in this part of the world many times before. He likes these kind of races. Being relayed there by Roger Hammond, former British professional champion and also former British professional cyclocross champion as well. It's a 5-man breakaway. They've got 4 minutes and 18 seconds over that front split. He was out in the crossfire and he was very lucky to get picked up during the transfer season in the winter by Team Sky.
That was a good move indeed. These are the chasers, and you've noted in the group there is Tyler Farrar, Red Stegmans, and Mark Cavendish has made the split. I haven't seen him, but they're saying he is in this group. 19 riders in the breakaway, Boysenhagen. That's why this is why Cancellara is a little bit concerned, because there are some names here who could go the distance.
Well, one rider has managed to get in there from Leopard Trek, and that's the son of the former world cyclocross champion Tom Stamsteider. And I don't think that will be the right combination. You can see the front end of the main field now is made up by Leopard Trek for Fabian Cancellara.
Yeah, breakaway containing a sprinter like Cavendish. It will be a present coming his way if he can hang on in there. The gaps now 25 seconds, so they've stretched a little bit on the peloton despite the work being done by Leopard Trek. They'll just they'll keep it steady, keep the race in the proximity if they can, and wait to make moves on these small climbs.
Well, I say, Phil, that Mark Cavendish this morning, despite the fact that he's one of the great sprinters of the world, was very excited to be participating in this event. Just down to the right-hand side there, we're taking a peek once again into the Garmin Cervelo team car. Peter van Petegem is having a lot to say on the radio.
I was thinking the same thing. I think, how annoying is that in your ears? But he might be saying something about early days. There's still 125 kilometers to go. Combination's good. I would think that Garmin Cervelo right now feeling very pleased with the way this race has unfolded just to this point.
Well, this front group now, Phil, is stretching out that gap over the main shoulder, indicate that he's a former Belgian national champion. It was right in the middle of the main field.
Just as they were straightening up of all places from that corner, just look at the traffic jam now. There must have been 30 cyclists stopped there. But this is so typical of Flanders and the narrow roads of this area, which I think Flanders was created for cycle racing. It is such an incredible area to ride a bike.
Well, you're mentioning that, Phil. Definitely the climbs that they've got around here are phenomenal for a professional bike race. But these small, tiny farm roads that zigzag across the Flanders really do set this up for being a great race. You have to ride near the front in this race. It's a battle every time you get to one of the climbs. 18 cobbled climbs in total, but there's an awful lot more cobbles in between which do the damage as well.
So the barren fields to the right, but nice and green. We've had a fair bit of rain in the region, but yesterday was an idyllic spring day with temperatures soaring up into the mid-60s. Today not quite so nice, but it's perfect for riding a bike in the Tour of Flanders. There's no question about that. Temperatures cooled down a little bit. It's slightly overcast. There was a rain forecast, but
percent in the maximum, and it is a cobble climb that these riders are setting themselves up for. Jez Hunt there in the dark black jersey of Team Sky, looking very comfortable. Former British professional champion. He's enjoying his day out in the Flanders.
Approaching the 4th climb of 18, and the biggies come thick and fast towards the last couple of hours of the race. Right now these boys have seen their lead crumble with that flurry of attacks. We might well see it go out again now they've caught those riders. It's tickling 2:58 just now. Turgot, Europe car on the front. It's still Rabobank, it's still Jangle, he's setting the pace. He's very strong today.
He wants to split this race to pieces, and he wants to see and whether or not he can pull back that breakaway. There's a little bit of discussion going on at Saxo Bank there, saying, come on guys, calm it down. But there are so many riders are very keen to try and get off the front. They feel that because of the pressure of that chase just a few kilometres ago, there's the possibility of strangling free.
This has been a tough race, it really has today. 50 kilometres in that opening hour and the peloton didn't split up. Then the breakaway of 5 got away, it went out to 6 minutes plus. There's been the counter-attacks. They really give me the impression that they are looking for the weak spot of Cancellara. They're always digging, investigating to see if they can get clear.
Number 43, Jürgen Roland, after that little bit of a catastrophe just round that corner, he's got himself onto the back end of the main field, and now I think it is the moment of truce, but only for a few kilometres, because these guys, they probably feel that they need some respite before the onslaught of the climbs ahead.
No shortage of men willing to take up the running here, that's for sure. Just looking at the head of the peloton there, the favourites are keeping their noses clear just now. I don't see any of them just sitting there near the front. Slipped away just a little bit.
Well, this is one of the small Belgian teams, Veranda's Willems Accent, which is looked after by Lucien Van Impe, the former winner of the Tour de France back in 1976, and a very dominant winner of the King of the Mountains classification during the era when he was racing against Eddy Merckx.
Well, they've got Stefan van Dijk in that breakaway just now, so I don't know what his teammates doing, trying to incite a riot at this point.
Ja, daar, kom maar. Ze is allemaal samen? Straks zo bak op kop. Vliegmas, ja. Vanavond. Nee, nee.
One of those techniques which sometimes the race referees turn a blind eye to. The other rider in the car there, of course, was Mark Sargent. And on the front, and I'm surprised to see him participating in the Tour of Flanders, the champion of France, just over to the right-hand side in the red, white and blue, Thomas Okolo, the winner of the final stage of Paris-Nice this year.
Hey, he's having a terrific season, his little...
Was dat gewoon slaan op dit laatste rit? Door de rij.
Points champion on the track and has been a senior Madison champion as well. He's done it all. Now he wants to be a top Tour de France rider, and why not? He's finished the race already.
Number 1, you might just have caught the sight in the middle there in the black jersey, the black shouldered jersey, which is white at the bottom part. That is Fabian Cancellara, and Phil, I have to say, he would grab it with both hands.
I've just got a feeling that his enthusiasm has not waned one iota, and this year he seems to be keener than ever. He must be to make the decision to go one more year next year.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a crash there as well. I don't know how that happened, but incredibly the peloton has dodged around. This is a BMC rider, and that is Burkhardt who's gone down.
Yeah, Markus Burkhardt, a very good rider from Germany. I don't think he went down too hard. He's back up very quickly. In the team car, by the way, today of Team BMC is, of course, Jim Okowitz, the godfather, I'd have to say, of American cycling, because Jim himself and his wife, former speed skaters, turned to cycling, and then he actually started the 7-Eleven team and brought it across to the... If you live on the French side of the border, is known as the Mont de l'Enclos, and there is Thor Hushovd in the second row there. You can see him just on the right-hand side with his World Championship bands on him. What a great victory that was for him in Australia in Geelong, because he came out of the pack with sheer defiance.
Well taken victory indeed, but I have to also say a great defence of his title by Cadel Evans, who wasn't quite able to keep the jersey for the second year, but we saw a lot of him in the World Championship. 2:14 the gap. Is that our Astana rider coming back, Grifko? Looks like it.
Well, it's
yes,
looks like he's had himself a little bit of glory off the front end of the main field, and now all of a sudden Andrei Grifko back in the fold. There's a crash at the back again.
This is interesting, because this is Postuma who's gone down. Hard way.
Well, I tell you what, we can see a big move coming to the front here. This looks like Tom Bonen himself has decided to give a little bit of stick out. Oh no, it's not. It's Kevin
Kretskins, is it?
Yeah,
Kretskins. No, it looks like Tom. I'll give you that.
Just the way he was rolling his shoulders a few moments ago. This would not be the type of move for Tom Bonen to make.
Sometimes it's a nice little message to the boys to say I'm feeling very strong today, but it is Wilfried Kretskins setting the pace on the same team as Tom Bonen. Then we've still got the Willems boys just behind, keeping an eye on things. Sky on the left of our picture,
and the damage being done at the back.
Yeah, life at the back. That's Alan Perez we saw go down the water in the water jump earlier.
And Tony Revard.
He's gone back, and Tony Revard, yeah.
Hey Bobby, come on!
Concentrate and not allow anybody to come from the back to the front. You see how Hushovd had his wheel change and quickly went to the front of the peloton. That's where he sits at the moment, 6 or 7 men back. He's looking like a man who's looking for the win today. You'll see how far he can go once we get to the steep short climbs. The tail is towards the sting in the tail is towards the end, of course, the Mur de Grammont. You can never go off course in the Tour of Flanders either, can you, with the crowds, the way they plot the route for you.
Looking around about 30 kilometres ago, Phil, the advantage of these 5 leaders, we look at Roger Hammond here, was 6.5 minutes, and it's now inside of 2.
Yes, Hammond bringing him around the corner first off. This man is such a skillful cyclo-cross rider, but he's a man of the spring. There's no doubt about that. This is when he does his performances. On the podium in Paris-Roubaix.
He's one of the riders
has suddenly shot up and the gap has collapsed. 1 minute 22.
This is a small town of Russigny, and it's not far from the Mont de l'Enclos, and that's why these riders are getting that little bit more nervous now, Phil, because this next climb is a very steep climb. It's one of those horrible climbs that starts off with a mild gradient. As you get closer to the top, it goes up and up and up.
Well, Voigtla's read the move. There he is in his French champion's jersey of blue. The world champion is off to our right in his white rainbow jersey. They're right at the sharp end for the split. This could be one of the last times we see the peloton so big, because once we get on the climb of l'Enclos, then I think we're going to see the front end really stamp on those pedals. There it is. The Knokteberg is next. 13%.
Protected riders there, swapping a wheel out with a teammate.
Well, they've certainly had their fair share of bad luck so far today, Leopard Trek. But thankfully not to Fabian Cancellara, who's holding position. He's not too far away from the front. As I say, if you can see him, I can. He's got number 1 on his back.
But you can see the nervousness now. These riders now, they're getting into the part of the Tour of Flanders, which they all know. If you're a seasoned professional, you know you've been here many, many times in the past. You know how important this climb is. There's one young rider who's clipped off the front end of the main field. He's got about a 15-second advantage over the peloton, but I think that's just to get himself a little bit of TV time. And there is the breakaway. 5 riders. They're now on the same climb. By the time they get to the same coloured jerseys, and again, he was going round that corner just a little bit too fast, lost his front wheel and straight into the grass.
And how lucky are the peloton are really amazing. Even the Europe car rider went. And so we're looking here at the breakaway now. Still, though, the head of the peloton rather reorganizing themselves. You never know when the man in front of you is going to collapse.
Well, this is the very famous Ronde van Vlaanderen, or the street of the Tour of Flanders. Just over the top, they're going to take a left-hand turn, drop down into the town of Kruisberg. And if they could just look over to the other side of the road there, Phil, that in fact is the top of the old Quaremont.
Well, we'll be there shortly. I think that was Dan Lloyd who went down there from the Garmin-Cervelo team. He's the big workhorse. He'd be the man most likely to be at the front at this stage of the race. The British rider on the squad. It seems okay, but it was a nasty shock. He did that once before, you know, when he almost won the stage in the Tour of Ireland. He was well clear, and an exact situation on a bend. He just lost control of his bike, but that was proved to be a diesel slick on the road.
That was very unfortunate. I think that was in the stage around Cork. And he was riding exceptionally well. You can see now we're dropping down. We're looking at speeds here of 85 to 90 kilometers an hour as we drop down into the small town of Kruisberg. And I have to say, that's a fairly new development on the right-hand side, which wasn't there last year.
And yes, and the spectators you see running to the right are heading over to the top of the next climb, which is on the back of our picture right now. Anyway, the boys at the front, you just take a look at the faces and see how hard they have to work.
They've got a multi-directional antenna on top there.
Look at that.
Well, they're splitting on the descent here after the top of the Knokteberg.
That is a very, very tough finish now for the riders. They try to reposition themselves here. That's a nice little peloton about to regroup at the front, but as I said earlier, we may have seen the last of the big peloton. A lot of riders left behind now at the moment. 1 minute 36 the gap as the togetherness of the leaders of the peloton.
Well, you notice just at the top of the Knokteberg, that gap, Phil, went up to around about 1 minute and 50 seconds. And now as we start to drop down into the town of Kruisberg, it's really tumbling fast.
The break.
corner there, Philly.
Like Robbie again.
It is McEwen going to the front. It looks as if one of the riders went in between the building and the lamppost, taking all kind of risks to get to the front.
And Robbie McEwen on the front here now.
Well, McEwen, he said this morning that he was here really to try and help out the team, and they've got a very good rider who has got a very good chance of doing well, I'd have to say, because Sebastian Roeselare has shown off some fine form this last week. And there is a split because there are no team cars behind.
This has been a very, very high-speed race today, ever since the flag went down when we left Brugge, because they did 50 kilometres in the first hour. The champion of Belgium, Stijn de Volder, he must be coming back from a problem. His jersey fully unzipped because he's off the back of the pack here. We had no reports, but look at the speed he's rejoining.
Well, he saw the damage there. He was caught out in a little split just going over the top of the Konochterbird, which again is why the guys battled to be at the front, and they're talking about a crash once again at the back of the main field.
Well, there's a Lamprey rider involved in it, but that is all we know, because I would think the referees are now working overtime here to find out where the race is. This might be the situation of the crash. It'll be the rider in mauve if it is the situation.
It's a BMC rider.
There he is on the right, plus a BMC rider.
Yeah. Gone down very hard indeed, and that's because of the battle of the Old Quaremont. Everybody being very nervous now, riding to the front end, making sure that they're in the first 15-20 places when they go to the Old Quaremont, because it's not actually the climb, Phil, of the Old Quaremont which is the most difficult. It's steep at the bottom, but it's there's a false flat over the top which is cobbled and usually battered by crosswinds. There's Hincapie in about 5th position in the red.
So we're looking at the head of the peloton now. There's 87 kilometres to go. There is a breakaway of 5. The gap down to 1:23. It was up to 6.5. And the breakaway well under control here, because there's a huge infight going on, Paul, between the heads of this race. And we're seeing all of the big teams suffer casualties. BMC's lost riders on the ground. Leopard Trka seen riders go down. This is the breakaway being led at the moment by Sebastian Turgot. The other members, Stefan van Dijk, Mitchell Docker, the Australian on skill, Jeremy Hunt, the British rider on Sky, and Roger Hammond. There he is on the right for Garmin-Cervelo. And for me, Garmin-Cervelo have made all the right moves so far today.
Yes, the American squad, Garmin-Cervelo, have got a 3-pronged attack in this race. Thor Hushovde, Henrik Hausler, and of course Tyler Farrar. The leading group of 5 are on the steepest part of the Old Quaremont here, Phil. It's 11.5%, but this is a climb that's 2.2 kilometres long. At the front end of the main field now, everybody's been doing whatever they can to try and bring their leaders into an ideal position for this part of the race.
This is where the Tour of Flanders, the Ronde Vlaanderen, really does begin. You've got to stay strong and stay at the front, and you've got to hope and pray you don't have a silly fall or a flat tyre. Turgot here, he's 26 years of age in just a couple of days' time. He's had a win last year. He's only had 2 wins in his career, but he looks a strong man today.
Phil, we're looking at 2.2 kilometres long, 1,500 metres of cobblestones, 11.6 is the maximum. It's around about 6% in average gradient. That's Matty Heyman for Team Sky in the black over on the right-hand side. A big battle for him to try and get Juan Antonio Fletcher to the front end of the main field.
And that's the aim.
But the other American team in this race, Phil, BMC, riding exceptionally well. They are today thinking about either George Hincapie or the former world champion and winner of this race, Alessandro Ballan.
Just looking at the pattern, the way it's been, and the high speed, we've seen the same teams trying desperately to put the men in the moves. BMC, Garmin-Cervelo, and not so much, but they haven't been far off the sharp end of the race. And if we're looking for who's going to win this, well, Leopard Trek might find that they'll be isolated with Cancellara, and the rest of the teams may have a few pieces of ammunition to use today. Minute 14 is the gap now. Matty Heyman is riding good form.
Inside the 1 minute margin.
And Cardoso there. No, it wasn't Cardoso, it was a Nuscatelli rider, wasn't it? They do not like the area. That was Castroviejo, who likes climbing in Spain but doesn't like climbing in Flanders.
Well, this is Sylvain Chavanel now. This is a very good tactical move for Tom Bonen because it's going to put a bit of pressure onto everybody else, because Sylvain Chavanel in his own right in the last couple of years has ridden exceptionally well in the Tour of Flanders, and while everybody might have been watching Tom Bonen, they dare not let Sylvain Chavanel get too much of an advantage.
Well, this race has got a real electric passion about it today, and the crowds are as big as I've ever seen them here in the...
Nu wordt het druk nog. We moeten allemaal aan de kant op.
Wil jij niet zo veel doen? Nou, hij zit alles uit, hè?
Ja, je kunt wel in een heel dik doen. die Spanjaarden, die hebben die niks gezien. Ja hoor. Dat vind ik nog een minuut of 12. Dat is de ganse passage. Oh, ik heb nog even een zak zo. Zie je het op? Ja, dat je niet helemaal leren.
And I think what he has to do, he has to keep Bonen calm before we get to the latter part of this race, because in the past Bonen has been such a pre-race favourite that he's got very nervous a long way from the finish, and maybe when he's got to the critical parts of the races he hasn't had enough energy left in those legs of his.
Well, on this race there are crucial moments. When you look back with hindsight you can see exactly where the decisions were made, and you have to make sure if you want to win you've got to be part of those decisions, and I think we're reaching one of those decision times right now. This is a sorting of the strong men, and if a strong man's caught behind the field he isn't going to be with the leaders when they crack.
No, certainly not. One or two riders splintering off the front. The start of the Koppenberg now for the leading riders.
And look at the gap, 49 seconds is all they've got, and this is an absolute brute. It was the subject of an April Fool this week when they said a Welshman had stolen all the cobblestones and they were going to have to reroute the race. Well, happily it wasn't so. We're looking at the riders now as they climb the Koppenberg here. Oh, they're on the Peterberg. No, it's this. I think that's the wrong caption, Paul. It should be the Koppenberg.
Actually, there's been a change this year, because what they've done is they've swapped in the Paterberg before the Koppenberg.
So the Paterberg it is as we go over the cobblestones here, and the gap is inside 40 seconds now, and it looks as though we're beginning to see the first signs of tiredness by Peter Sagan. Now that is a little bit of a surprise. Sagan was being talked about as a likely winner and he's in trouble.
Well, now you can see Bonen on the right hand side, Gilbert moving up through the middle. These are the big strong boys. Geraint Thomas over on the left there in the white jersey. There you can see Tyler Farrar, the American on the American team, Garmin Cervelo. Riders being picked up from the breakaway now. The pressure is on here on the Paterberg, and this is Gilbert, the French-speaking Belgium.
This is the time to hurt them, says Philippe Gilbert. He comes from the beautiful area, the other side of Brussels. His language is French. In his own country, this part of the world, they speak in Flemish. So from the Tour of Flanders to the Ronde van Vlaanderen for Gilbert, and he would love to win this more than you can imagine. His last 2 years he's finished third.
Well, I tell you one thing, to his credit, as a French-speaking Belgian, he is also extremely fluent in the Flemish language, and he's not too bad at English either.
Absolutely right, which is unusual. When I used to live in Belgium and race on a team, my teammates couldn't speak French, and in their own country they used sign language when they went to the Ardennes.
Well, you can see the damage that's now being caused. The riders, there is Thor Hushovd in the white jersey in the World Bands. Stuart O'Grady just behind him. I haven't seen Fabian Cancellara at all, but I would presume he'd be in the first 10 or 15 riders.
Well, if you think the stars of the world of professional cycling don't suffer like normal human beings, take a look at their faces right now. Hushovd was in pain on this climb, but suffering and holding position, which is what you have to do. This is where you hang on in there and try and repair any damage over the top.
Well, if you get dropped off at this point, you'll start to have a little blow to the morale, because you'll be trying to figure out how are you going to get back to the main field, or the other part of the story is how will you get to the finish line for a cold shower, because the showers here normally are extremely cold.
There will be by the time the last markers come in, that's for sure. But as they go around here, the crowd have waited for hours to see this. Just look at the crowds in these remote parts of Belgium. It somehow is quite bizarre, but this is their event and they are following it with a passion. If you talked in the bars last night in anywhere in Belgium, they would tell you what they expected, who they hoped would win, what the problems were on the roads. They know it all, believe me.
And everybody had an opinion. They all talked about Fabian Cancellara being the best man for this race and the man who had the Tour of Flanders to lose, and he knows that himself. The pressure has been on his shoulders since a year ago when he dominated this race with a brilliant solo victory. But they all, because we were in Belgium, of course, Phil, they all wanted Bonen or Philippe Gilbert to try and dethrone the flying man from Switzerland.
Now we've got this small breakaway, and it's only down to 3 riders. They're the survivors, Hammond, Docker and Turgot. We saw Jeremy Hunt caught there. Stefan van Dijk has also gone back, the Willems rider.
zetten? Hadden wij dus op computer moeten zetten?
Nou, deze gaat dat wel lukken, pa.
Jersey, joined by Sylvain Chavanel. Chavanel is a tough rider, and I think it's a good move to have Quick-Step launch a man like Chavanel off the front end of the main field, because that gives the big man Tom Bonen a little bit of a back seat, because he won't chase his own teammate.
No, he won't, and the other teams will have to, because Chavanel is a very, very accomplished bike rider, and very, very possible he could do well here. So they can't ignore this one. This is a move by Chavanel. Simon Clark, another Aussie, has read it well too. Good chance for him to try and get up to the leaders. Only 3 of them left up front.
Hincapie there, covered by Geraint Thomas, the British national champion. He felt a little lull in the organisation at the front and thought he would whip it up a bit, but also very attentive on the left-hand side. Blue helmet, that is Sylvain Torra.
Well, this is an interesting. They know they've got the gap here, so they're going to do their best to work to hold it. Look over the backs of these riders now. The cars are in the shot as well. They're not going to stay out much longer in front here. The pace being set here by Mitchell Docker, has been superb in this longer breakaway. I don't know what's wrong with Turgo there, shouting at him because he's doing pretty well.
Well, he wants to whip it up because he knows there are 3.5 kilometres to go to the new climb of the Koppenberg, which, as you said, it is still there, despite the April Fool's announcement.
And that's what he's saying. He said, let's get over the top of the hill before we get caught, because the Koppenberg, it really is a walking climb if the legs collapse. So he needs to get the breakaway over the top of the hill. Then there's a chance they can move into the advanced party coming up.
Well, I tell you what, that big acceleration at the front end of the main field has split the peloton. In fact, where has the peloton gone?
Well, that land, the peloton has slowed down. The peloton just missed.
Ja, hè?
Bangelijk auto, hè? Dikjes, joh. Dus dat is niet meer sport, is. Dat is vooral, jongen. Dat is vooral. Hier zijn het deze, hè? Ja. Dat is ook wel los. En dan zo, dat ring zo voor sport. Een volk. We moeten godverdomme.
See that breakaway again.
Well, that was because of the pain that was dished out on that previous climb there, the climb of the Paterberg, by Philippe Gilbert, and it has split this race just exactly the way they wanted it to.
21 seconds. They're no longer catching those 3 leaders for the moment. Clark and Chavanel are somewhere in between as far as we know. We're going to start running out of cameras for a minute right now. Plenty of people here willing to keep the pace up, which indicates Saxo Bank at the front now. They've got their fancied riders in the breakaway, otherwise they wouldn't be working. This is the first big decision, I feel.
No, it certainly is. Everybody wants to get to the Koppenberg. It's a climber, whether or not you're a professional bike rider or not, that really throws fear into your heart. Chavanel has just about got across to the Kop van de Weegstraat. Well, I'll translate that into English for you, the front end of the race. We are in the Flanders. They do have their own language, and they're very proud of it.
Absolutely, and they're proud of their bike riders. The Belgians have won this race 66 times. Only one has ever come outside of Flanders, and that was Claude Coquillon. So the Flems, as they call them, the Flemish people, have won this event 65 times out of a possible 94.
They have to go back, Phil, to 1986, I think, to the victory of Claude Coquillon for the French-speaking riders, which is why. And I had noticed this morning, despite the fact that we're right in the very heart of the Flanders, Philippe Gilbert was an extremely popular bike rider, even though he was a French-speaking rider.
Absolutely. Now there was. group.
This is a lumpy part of the world. We always think about Belgium and Holland being completely flat, but every time we look to the left and right of this main field, you can see these hills that ripple around the heart of Flanders, and this range of hills is what we will zigzag over for the next hour or hour and a half of racing.
There's the gap as we pan down the road there. That does not look bridgeable anymore, not with the quality of riders in that chase group. So the first decision has come at 79 kilometres to go to the finish. That peloton has turned off the power. They're on freewheel towards the finish, I think.
Well, it's a long time since I've seen the race split up quite so dramatically as this before we get to the Koppenberg. In that second group, by the way, Phil, I had noticed Stijn de Volder.
I just caught a glimpse of him myself, and there he is right on the front, the champion of Belgium. Remember, he just came back from a problem, and the race has split ahead of him, and he's going to be absolutely fuming with himself there. And Robbie McEwen is also there now, slipped towards the back of that field.
Well, McEwen had different idea in his team tactics this afternoon. He was there really to look after one of the riders from Team Radio Shack, and that was Sebastian Roeselare.
And as far as we know, Roeselare has made this first selection of the day. Now, we've got 5 riders again, but they've been recharged by Simon Clark and Sylvain Chavanel, and we have lost Stefan van Dijk and Jeremy Hunt from up here. They're back in the pack.
Well, Chavanel has got a fine pair of legs on him here this afternoon, because he knows by riding off the front end of this group, he's putting pressure on everybody else in the race and assisting his own team. And in the past, I've always thought that Chavanel had got the ability to win a race like the Tour of Flanders.
Well, the quick step man has got himself, he's recovered. Last year he had a terrible crash in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, which was only a couple of weeks ago to go this year when he fractured his skull, but he did come back. And now he looks as though he's found his old legs again.
Well, he just put his hand down a little bit to say to Simon Clark, take it easy. This is the right-hand bend and we're onto the Koppenberg.
So we're looking now on the slopes of the Koppenberg. That is the select group which split on the previous climb of the Peterberg. And it looks to be around about 25 riders. We still haven't got a full identity of them, but we're pretty certain that the men that matter have made the split. The Koppenberg.
Doe lang zeg, alsjeblieft.
Chavanel is de beste.
Hey, come on! Hey!
It really is steep, and as I say, if your legs go, it is a walking climb, this one. And look at the speed of the chase group now, coming together of the heads of state in the Tour of Flanders.
Well, I tell you,
die wel wat rapper hier is, hè?
Nu een Tom, zeg.
So I'm looking to see if number 1 flashes beneath our camera here. As Canceller, I think he's just gone through under our camera. He's right up near the front of the event as they continue now this breakaway reforming here. Sebastian Langeveld is there for Rabobank as well. Gilbert has pulled them all the way up. There is Cancellara now. As he passes through, all is well just for the moment. He will respect Philippe Gilbert, who has ridden an absolute stormer up the Koppenberg.
Phil, I cannot believe at 75 kilometres to go, they're already throwing these punches at each other. There's the remnants of the early morning breakaway. Roger Hammond going backwards, but Philippe Gilbert has got great form this afternoon, chased down by Tom Boonen, Cancellara, Fletcher and Torhushoff too.
Well, I take my hat off to Roger Hammond. He's grit his teeth. He's come over the top now. He's got a chance to recover here. Again, the field is split, but I think there was a serious chase back by with that peloton because they're still in sight of the leaders. They haven't caught them, and now, of course, this is when the elastic stretches. The leaders are over the top, the pressure goes back on.
It's probably when you ask yourself, oh, what am I doing here on a nice Sunday afternoon in the middle of Flanders? There is Stijn de Volder. He's trying to ride himself back into this race. He's gone over the top of the Koppenberg looking for about 35 seconds. That's going to be very difficult to pull back.
Well, I have to say, it is a nice Sunday afternoon now. It is very, very spring-like indeed. The rain clouds seem to have drifted away across the sea as we see 74 kilometres to go now.
Well, in another 4 kilometres, Phil, they come up to another very difficult climb, the Steenbeekdries, which is around about 700 metres long. But to get there, they've got about 2,000 metres of cobblestones.
Well, let's see how they...
Dan moet je lekker sketsen in 200 kilometer aan de stuk dan meestal. Het is nog bang? Is het bang? Ja. Momentje. Maar allemaal niet zo erg.
Oh, vast hè? De kop aan het baren, kom weer helemaal omhoog, jongen. Hou dat vast, kom on. Come on, hè! De maar rijden! Allee mannen, come on, hè! Kom on, gasten! Die Miranda. Die is aan het staren van hem, ja. Dus dat hier dat hij afkomt. Kom on, mannen. Kom on, jongens. Kom on, bravo. Sebastian, dit is goed. Kom on. Die was veel precies.
Ik heb er nog maar 2 minuten en een half video.
Consolidate his advantage at this part of the race. He's got a good partner there with Simon Clark, but as I said, tactically it's extremely good for Team Quickstep because it puts pressure on everybody else, and look how this race is split apart.
But this is what the Ronde is. This is what happens if they race so hard, and they've chosen today to race really hard because they know deep down if they don't race hard they will take Cancellara to another notable victory. So they're giving him all they can do, and everybody wants to race. It has reduced the field dramatically in this last 20 kilometres.
It certainly has. There's Thor Hushoff going through in the white jersey, the world champion from Geelong in Australia, and a very good end to the season. As we come back out onto the main road, 73 kilometres to go. Chavanel just looking across the fields of Flanders here, Phil, to see what sort of damage he has done.
Yes, and Simon Clark there, this is it. Off that bend, but he's still up there. Field regrouping here now. It's going to be big again because there's not a big gap between this group and that chasing peloton.
Well, you can see how much it's split up there, though, and again, Garmin Cervelo have got a lot of riders in this leading group to look after Thor Hushoff. That is Roger Hammond, Phil, and that's why he was in the breakaway early on. He now knows he's not got that much energy left in his race. He might not even finish the Tour of Flanders here this afternoon, but if he can put some power into the break to make sure these other groups don't come back, that will be his job done for the day.
I'll tell you what, I can hear the shouts coming from Australia right now for Clarkey in this breakaway. Another new name for us all to cheer on from this amazing country. It's not going to last much longer. It's going to be a coming together of quite a few star riders. Simon Clark taking on the food here now as he passes through the feeding station. Chavanel, a much more experienced rider, but Clark looks like he's riding like a veteran here.
Well, he might be Australian, but he's no stranger to the United States because almost the whole of his career, Phil, he's raced it in American teams. He rode for a long time for Team Navigators, which is one of the top teams in the United States for many, many years.
Well, he started out life as a junior world champion on the track. He comes from Selby in Victoria. I've never heard of Selby, but that's where he comes from. At least I suspect he still lives there. But he's one of the tough Victorian cyclists based out of Melbourne. So And now we're hearing that there's a problem here. Peter Sagan, we saw dropping off. The referees are telling us that his bike is broken and it sounds as though he's out of the race. Well, it couldn't have happened at a worse time. The cobblestones are not very choosy with who they pick on, and poor Peter Sagan, he was listed as a man who could be on the podium today. Instead, he'll be on the finishing line watching from the grandstand.
Well, I think Peter Sagan is a rider we can talk about for the next couple of years. He's still very young indeed. I think he's only just touching 21 years of age. We're coming on to this long section of cobblestones now, and in fact these two riders are starting to open up a very serious advantage. This is the Maria Borestraat, 2.2 kilometres long of cobblestones.
Another bone shaker for the riders here, just to remind them that they have a stepping stone up towards the next climb. As they get steeper, funnily enough, it looked as though that bridge was going to happen then and there. I know the camera foreshortened the gap, but all of a sudden it seems to have opened up again.
Well, Roger Hammond, the American team, Garmin Cervelo, is the man putting the hammer down on this section of cobblestones, because he wants to try and make sure that these groups don't come together, because he feels right now they've got the right men in the right place. But I think as we look down the road, it is coming together.
Well, we're looking here at Roger Hammond. Yes, he is the tough man of British cycling, indeed world cycling. The Garmin Cervelo boys played a good card, putting him in the breakaway. But now they're snapping him up. It just leaves two leaders in Simon Clark, Sylvain Chavanel. They're only just ahead now. So it looks as though we're having a reshake. And Peter Sagan has gone out of the race with a broken bicycle.
Well, that's pretty tough luck for Peter Sagan, but again, Phil, I think he's the kind of rider who will come back in a couple of years' time, just 21 years of age. He can learn from his experiences in events like this.
Well, the kilometres are flying off our television sets today, aren't they? 71 to go now as we get to the Steenberg-Driest climb. Short and sharp.
Is in fine form, and he really does enjoy bike races like this.
Now this is looking very much like it's not Matthew Goss, is it, who's coming up to the front. He's had a shave for a change. I'm not sure that's a good sign. The winner of Milan San
There is Geraint Thomas once again thinking about Juan Antonio Fletcher, and I think I tend to agree with you, Phil. We are looking at a British rider who is facing stardom.
The quiet man from Wales, I'll tell you, he's a killer when he's in the saddle, and he is doing a lot of work today, and I hope he can put Fletcher in a winning position. Hill number 10 behind us.
Yeah, that's the Steenberg-Driest, and that will give the riders, again, sadly for them, there's no respite over the top of these climbs because it continues with cobblestones. Well, next climb on the menu, and they are coming thick and fast at the moment, will be climb number 11. That's the famous Tyenberg, almost as steep as the Koppenberg, with a maximum gradient of 16%.
As we snake our way, thank heavens there's no railway coming there. As we cross over the tracks, the long thin line now. The nervous riders here, they're beginning to shred the nerves now, because now it's all eyes on the race for them. This is the crucial stage of the Tour of Flanders. One hill after another. If it's not a hill, you're changing direction. If it's not a change of direction, you're racing over cobblestones. This hour of racing is the most crucial.
Well, I have to say, from a few moments ago, Phil, seeing the race as split up as it was, I thought that was it. Now look at this. Tom Bonen has decided he's going to try and cover all these small moves.
And plenty others like Carsten Kroon here, I think it is at the front at the moment for BMC.
I'm not sure that is Carsten Kroon. I heard a little earlier, Phil, that he'd been involved in an accident.
Yeah.
But Bonen is seeing this advantage of moving into these little groups off the front end, and that's all because his own teammate Sylvain Chavanel has gone off the front, and Chavanel is leading by 18 seconds. Of all of this is putting pressure on the man that we expect to win, Fabian Cancellara. Fletcher hasn't missed the move. He's number 4 sitting on the back.
And this now shuts down Team Sky, because they won't chase now. This is the man they want to try and get away. He needs to be in a breakaway, of course, Fletcher. He'll never win if he's up against the big sprinters. The sharp left turn here now, that breakaway will react to this group of four. It's a perfect place to launch the attack. And just how strong is Chavanel and Clark, because they're holding off all of the action just now.
Well, if Tom Bonen plays his cards right here and he's able to ride across the gap and make the junction.
I have a footstep to see.
Hagen just behind him, and so Team Sky have got the rider right on Cancellara's wheel. Just looking down the line here now. Well, it looks to me as though we still have everything to race for here. There is no obvious favourite anymore, and the field are doing everything right. They're attacking Fabian Cancellara. Well, as you're looking now, the team is now under the pressure from a new team on the block and not on the race. One of the longest sponsorships in the sport right now, Rabobank. But they're having a wonderful start here. It all began with victory by Cameron Meyer in Australia.
Hier, we Peters. Wil je zien? Oh nee, Flanker, de Flanker.
Ja, dat is. Hier de balans komt hier. Hey James, kom on! Sieber in Batu. Kom maar jongens, kom maar. Stop hè, stop. Stoof, ja, die was vervallen hè. Ah. Ah, zo, is dat zo'n grote? Dat ah, ja.
Stakan.
Is dat Stakan?
Maar Bob was ook kracht, hè?
Dat is dat ik hem ken. Hey, kom maar.
See you're zigzagging, turning left and right. This looks like Sebastian Langevel from Team Rabobank. It didn't look to me at the start of the race if they had a very strong team, but it's the motivation of a race like the Tour of Flanders that can help an awful lot more, of course. Basically what is important there, because of the fact that Sebastian Chavanel has got himself into this breakaway group, Phil, it puts a lot of pressure onto Leopard to do the chasing, because Chavanel is a man who has a big ticket on his back because he's an extremely well-known bike rider. This is the Echtihove Plain, 200 meters long, and that's before they get to the next climb of the day, the climb of the Eichenberg.
So the tandem up front, the Australian-French tandem, has a gap of 12 seconds, and the pressure is on, I think, Leopard Trek right now, because They've certainly got Cancellara up here, but I think they're very thin on the ground with workers, because they've had nothing but trouble since they started. We've passed one or two of the riders on the floor and others with punctures, so they may be quite weak as a team just now, and that means that Cancellara will have to ride like two men if he's going to control this race in the last 30 kilometres.
Well, he's hoping to play a clever tactical game for the moment and make sure that he can use his teammates as much as possible, but many of his riders have had a lot of bad luck so far in this race with crashes and flat tyres, and it puts a lot of pressure onto the shoulders of Fabian Cancellara once we get into the final hour of racing.
Well, we've got one rider just out of our picture there, just going around that top bend. I don't know where he is, but he must be bridging the gap to the two leaders just now. This is the main part of the peloton, and our cameras can't get down there annoyingly at the moment because of the nature of the race. The race referees, knowing that the race is splintering, will not allow motorbikes in those gaps. So we're working on the helicopter here.
Well, I think we've got another moment of respect. Anyway, this is Chavanel, and he's getting on with the job at hand right now, because he knows that every minute that he's in front of this race, every kilometre that he's in front of this race, he's got a big chance to put the pressure on the shoulders of everybody else. You throw the bike on your shoulder and you ride a bit more.
Is this Lance Armstrong coming up the hill? Because look at his cadence here. This Chavanel is just ticking those pedals over at around about 120 revs. As he speeds up the climb here, Bohm is trying to bridge the gap, but this is another pressure point, there's no doubt now. Vogler there at the head of the chase behind. This man is on one of his best ever seasons, I think.
Well, I'm amazed to see that Thomas Vogler is dishing out a little bit of pain to Tom Boonen, who's just sitting there comfortable as can be. Boonen is the ideal bill for these kind of classics races, with the cobblestones and with the climbs. He's a big man, he sits very firmly on his machine, and he's just sitting there looking at what's happening in front of him, knowing that his teammate is riding for him to try and set something up. And don't be surprised to see Tom Boonen going for a long one this afternoon.
Well, he's going to make the others take him to the leaders while he's got Chavanel, his teammate, up front. Here comes Lars Bohm. Final kick, not into our camera, and he might bridge the gap here, and then we've got three riders up front. He'll be welcomed by those two. It's a huge effort here by Lars to join the gap, but as I said earlier, this is Rabobank's year just now.
The Tour of Flanders is a very complicated race, and we're not about to see two riders at the front, we're about to see four, because somewhere across that gap I just noticed Juan Antonio Fletcher.
Then he was the rider we've seen alone all of the time, but our cameras weren't able to pinpoint him. Then somewhere along the road he got away from the boys, and Fletcher is joining the leaders along with Bohm at the same time.
In there we're at the next section of cobblestones, and this is a very long stretch of cobblestones just outside the town of Volkerhem. This is the Holloweg, 1.5 kilometres long.
Does that mean hollow road?
Probably, but there's a hollow feeling for many of these bike riders this afternoon.
Well, they're dodging the cobblestones here, but remember now that without Rabobank chasing, without Team Sky and without Team Quickstep, the three big teams have turned off in that group behind, who carry front
too much advantage. In fact, Phil, I guessed it was Fletcher, just because Lars Boom is the man on the front. Sylvain Chavanel is the powerhouse of this breakaway. Simon Clark, he's been around for a long time. In fact, he's 31 years of age now, but he's starting to peek into the big time. And Bozenhagen just on the right hand side there, he certainly is another of those riders who is a talent for the future.
Well, he seemed to have been around forever, yet the man is only just 23.5 years of age, so he's still very young. As he gets up in that breakaway, he's starting his second season with Team Sky. He's never performed in the Ronde van. We might get a better shot of it here. There's our cameraman who came from nowhere, right up behind our camera. Well, they've got the line okay, but they were going too quick. They just couldn't get round, and that's put Mortensen to the back of the group now. Brilliant Ronde van Vlaanderen. Then he takes the rest of the year off.
Well, we're on the Kerk gate, the gate to the church, a 1.5 kilometre cobblestone section. If you want to ride the cobblestones, you want to ride this bike race, you need to be at the front.
Still one or two cool faces there, not looking as though they're too much under pressure. We're in the car here again, who's actually cheering on Sylvain there. He's saying, come on Sylvain. That was Wilfred Peters, the director sportif of Quick Step. He's still got Sylvain Chavanel up front with Simon Clark, Fletcher.
When it does, you'd better be with it.
Doesn't mince his words, to be honest. He doesn't say many words, but when he does say them, he makes them count. These are the 4 leaders now, and they've worked so hard. They fully deserve to be in the escape group, but every one of these 4 had to work hard to be part of the front group. 22 seconds, it's stretching again. Very pliable, this elastic today, I must say. 55 kilometres to go to the finish.
And I think again we're getting to one of those points where there's a moment of truth. George Hincapie just spotted him, Phil, over on the left-hand side.
That's our man, Big George. Frédéric Guédon, once a winner of Paris-Roubaix.
And also a winner of Paris Tours. He doesn't win very many bike races, but the ones he's got on his pedigree are all big, famous events. And he knows how to ride, and I must admit, Phil, I actually thought he'd retired last year.
Well, I hope he's not listening to your commentary, Paul, because he's certainly riding very well. At this stage of the race, 55 kilometres out, he's now seeing what can be done here. It's a test. He's on the Willems team. And enjoying himself with the crowd. He's not far off. He'll be 39 years of age.
To take a battering in races like this, the Tour of Flanders and of course Paris-Roubaix, and these are the races that he loves, and that's really because it filters through from his own team manager Marc Madiot, who's a 2-time winner of Paris-Roubaix for France.
So Guédon, which means handlebar in French, is now just holding on to those handlebars and dancing on the pedals as he tries to get away from the field. The leaders are 23 seconds ahead of the main field. As we're popping into the car of Amigo Farmer Lotto, this is Marc Sejean. Did you hear what he said, Paul?
No, it's a great system, but I don't think it's the first time that, in fact, the Belgian television have tried to do this. We're supposed to be going into the team managers' cars to listen in to some of the team tactics which are being given out. But so far, it hasn't worked 100%.
When they know we're in there, they stop talking. Because they don't want us to know all about the tactics. Well, Guédon looks as though he's not going to get very far. We still have 4 leaders clear, and now we're down to just 54 kilometres to go and no decision yet. This is the capture of Guédon. It's an advance. No, these are the leaders, sorry.
Of his team at the moment, and that's because he's got Sylvain Chavanel in that leading group, and this must be the tactics, I think, today of the teams. You've got one super favourite before the start, and that was Fabian Cancellara, and everybody said it's Cancellara's race to lose, but it seems to me the reason this race has been so aggressive, Phil, is because of Cancellara's form. They know they've got to knock him against the rings, knock him against the ropes of the boxing ring, a number of proud of.
He was indeed, and fully deserved it too. Because he's normally a workhorse and not a winner. But there he is, he's now going out on the move, and it looks as though the Rabobank rider just behind there is Tom Lisa, who's got himself into the break as well.
Well, on the left-hand side, the Kop van der Week side, the front end of the race, is the 4 men we've been talking about, who are the...
I hope he's okay. Kazakh rider. I was just about to say, Paul, I think I should apologise to Greg Van Avermaet. I didn't think it was possible for him to be in the chase group, so I plunged for Michael Sharp. But it is Greg Van Avermaet who's in the group. He is a sprinter. He got a huge cheer when he came to the start this morning, but he's...
Nee, nou toch ook 4 minuten samen. Nee, de broeders van liefde, de broeders van liefde. Ja. Niet meer in, hè?
When out of the blue he came up with a victory in a stage of the Tour of Qatar when nobody really heard about him.
So as we look to the riders now, they're just starting the Molenbeek.
bieden. Ja. En het zien het als je laat. Ja, maar als het gewoon op.
Wheel.
Well, Spartacus is the man on the right-hand side. A little while back they told me that he didn't like the nickname Spartacus. Well, if you get a chance to see him up close at any race start, he's actually got the name Spartacus written on the back of his jersey.
Oh dear me, Frederick Guedon comes sailing back from the chasing group of 4 now as Spartacus.
Al die schöne Velos. Ja.
Was ist das?
Das süße Sau.
Now, again, power turned off, all checking the damage done. Cancellara reminding everybody he's now at the front.
Well, just looking around, keeping an eye out, just to make sure they know who's here and who's not. But Sylvain Chavanel has leaped off the front of this group now, Phil, and he's on his own with a 31-second advantage. Now, in this day and age when everybody is concerned about money, I'll tell you one slight fact about Sylvain Chavanel. When he moved away from Team Cofidis and moved across to Team Quickstep, he took a pay cut because he wanted to be in a team where he knew he could learn and further his career. I think his salary's gone back up now, though.
I would expect so, in cost of inflation. But Chavanel now doing what he has to do, and that's move on. But look at it. We're inside 47 kilometres or 30 miles now to go to the finish. Which continues to change. We'll take a break. The lonely view then of the splitting or the splintering league group now. Guedon has come back from that chase group of 4, and it looks like others might have done as well, because we've now got 4 chased by 2, and I think Chavanel is back in that chase group of 4 now. 37 seconds the spread, that is all. Matty Heyman driving here at the front of this group. Greg.
Wel een beetje van achtergrond.
Ja, ieder zijn ze.
We beginnen, hè?
Away. There's always been a breakaway, but it's never been far away.
Well, this time it looks to me as if they waited till they got to the Old Quaremont to wipe out the early morning breakaway, and now we've got a very interesting situation, because this man is a man who's got a very big engine, and he's quite capable of riding the final 46 kilometres on his own. And if you're looking at his body language, you're looking at the way he's pedalling, he's got an awful lot of energy left inside the powerhouse.
And let's not forget either, this man has been the time trial champion of Belgium on 3 occasions since 2005.
Well, I think you meant France because he's on a Belgian
good
team.
Point. Thank you very much. You saved me. Yes, on time trial champion of France. And if you leave him alone, he'll get into his rhythm. 48 seconds, and it's going up now, and he'll feel at home with a flotilla of motorbikes all around him. This is a serious bid for victory by Sylvain Chavanel. He knows if all of the teams are watching the team move his captain, Tom Bonen, then it's up to him to win for Quick-Step.
No, it certainly is, and all this does is it continues to put pressure on every...
But this boy is a real tough Welshman. Oh, and a bit of problem here at the back of the race. This is Gilbert, isn't it?
It is Gilbert. He's not panicking at all. You see he's waiting for the mechanic to get that wheel in. It's a back wheel. It normally takes a little bit longer. That was about 18 seconds. That's Mark Sargent, the former Belgian national champion himself when he was racing, pushing him away. He's in the convoy of cars, Phil, so he shouldn't have too much of a problem to get back into the race. And a number of teammates will wait for him.
Well, it was a very good wheel change, I have to say. It was a shame our cameras didn't cut into the car. We had a microphone in there, don't forget. It would have been nice to hear the comments then, wouldn't it?
Certainly would. The gap now for Sylvain Chavanel is 55 seconds over the front end of the main field. I would start to think that one or two of the teams are going to have to try and re-evaluate their tactics.
There's bound to be something wrong with the saddle. There always is at this stage.
No, it's usually the back brake, and it's usually readjusted at around about 60 kilometres an hour. Let's call...
Philippe Gilbert. So we're looking the other way right now. He'll join through the convoy. This is the peloton, and luckily for Gilbert, it looks as though the powerhouse has reduced for the moment. Anybody, look at the clock. He is nudging 1 minute now. As we look at the clock here, it's gone out to a minute now. The lone attack by Sylvain Chavanel as he heads towards Honghoek. We're on the cobblestones here. It's 2,000 metres, 2 kilometres of cobbles, and as you can see, it is not flat. But the former national time trial champion of France is nosing ahead of everybody, and he's doing it all by himself.
Well, I have to tell you one thing. When you look at the way Sylvain Chavanel is going, if I can use a bit of English slang, he's hossing it along here at the moment. He really is giving it everything. While at the back of the race, Philippe Gilbert has just had a rear wheel puncture. He's getting his way through the convoy of cars. He doesn't look like a man who's panicking at all.
No, you don't need this, believe me, but he's the man to handle it if he gets it. And he's coming back up to the peloton. He's still got to go through the referee's cars, and he's back on. So the return of Gilbert. The last 2 years he's finished third in the Tour of Flanders. He wants the win. Only one other rider from his area of Wallonie, which is the Ardennes region of Belgium, has ever won this race. All the other Belgian winners have come from the Flames area.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. A few moments ago, the two riders who were chasing Lars Boom and Edward Bosenhagen were almost onto the wheel of Sylvain Chavanel, but I think all of a sudden he's got a twin turbo going because it's whistling like mad.
And the world champions had to come and do some work now. Tor Hushoff for Gorman Cervelo has hit the front, realising that Leopard Trek are on the back foot, and they can't just win with Cancellara. Not when they've got a man running away with the race for Belgium, even though he's a Frenchman. And the French have never won since '92 either. Hushoff trying to lift the pace, but heavily marked by the teammates of Chavanel.
Bang goes Tom Boonen.
Well,
he's seen this as an
capture
opportunity. He's got a teammate in the breakaway, but he sees this as being a chance.
Well, I'm not sure I would have done that, but Tom Boonen has done it, and he's picked up the one man he didn't want. So he does well to slow down right now. He's got Cancellara in his slipstream. Not a good move.
You have to get up very early in the morning if you want to catch out Fabian Cancellara. That was a nice move by Tom Boonen. He saw the setup coming from Tor Hushoff. He saw it as an opportunity. He does have a teammate in the breakaway right now, but they have opened up a gap.
And Felipe Pozzato is the man who's hooked up at the back here, another rider from Italy who rides exceptionally well on Belgian roads. Well, I've seen some silly moves, but that might go down as one of the silliest today, because Bonen's now started a reaction against his own teammate.
Well, this is the four-man group away, five-man group away that was caught in between no man's land, and all of a sudden they've gone straight by them, and I don't expect them to get any assistance at all.
Now Simon Clark there really struggling as the express came through on the left-hand side of the road. Three huge names in the sport, and the reaction started by Tom Bonen here.
And now Fabian Cancellara himself has said, right, this is not a bad move, this is about the time when I don't have any mates left in the main field. I might as well try and ride across this gap. He won't get too much help from Tom Bonen, but now Fabian Cancellara has got to...
Times of the Muur de Grammont, the Bosberg to follow yet. If this results in a victory for Tom Bonen, for Fabian Cancellara, well, Chavanel can blame Bonen for starting it.
Well, Fabian Cancellara now has really put the cat amongst the pigeons. He's looked over his shoulder. Look at the power of this beast of a man, Phil, as Bonen is just grasping to get to that back wheel.
Well, he's got to hang on for his pride now, because he started something. He's got to finish here. He has lit the touch paper as far as Fabian Cancellara is concerned.
Kan je daar eens naartoe? Aan Bodenbrak. VMC.
In his back pocket to show his daughter at the finish. I think he is, you know, it's just there.
More than likely, but I'll tell you one thing, Phil, he doesn't have an engine in his bike, as he was accused of last year, because it was x-rayed at the end of every stage of the Tour de France last year, and he was pretty impressive there.
Absolutely, and I don't think anybody of serious mind believed it either. But as we come up to the top of climb number 14, there are 4 more climbs to top before the long run into the finish here in the last 40 kilometres. Tom Bonen has started the reaction, which he could not finish, and is about to destroy.
Minute mark, and Chavanel now getting into an organised ride. He probably has the information coming through to himself that he's about to get caught by the flying Swissman.
And the world time trial champion, let's not forget, about to bring back the former French national time trial champion. Cancellara has taken 35 seconds off the board already. Once this man gets out on his own, you'll need more than to less than a little bit of weight here, I think, Sylvain, because there's a tornado brewing just off the port bow.
Yeah, well, these guys, they seem to have had the stuffing taken out of them here, Phil, because of the severity of that attack. There's the man who started it all at the back, but it was taken over by Cancellara. Well, the time spread is 22 seconds to Fabian Cancellara and 40 seconds to this group, and all of a sudden they seem to have lost their will to work at the front end of the main field, because they've been...
Robbie!
Steadily towards the leaderboard.
Well, one man, Phil, who does seem to have been caught out in the crossfire, of course, is one of the pre-race favourites, Philippe Gilbert. He was not expecting a move by Tom Bonen, and he's locked in the main field, so I wonder what his team Omega Pharma Lotto, are going to do about this.
Well, they've got to do something big now. They've left with no choice. Gilbert was unlucky because it all happened as he rejoined the race after that flat tyre, and that was bad luck. You need a couple of minutes to recover, and that was a vicious counter-attack by Bonen, and easily followed by Cancellara. who simply finished it off. Now looking up the road there, we don't see Cancellara at all, neither are we likely to, about 15 seconds up.
Well, Cancellara showing some real bike handling skills as he went round those corners. You can almost see the difference in the speed as we look here at Sylvain Chavanel plodding along. The way Fabian Cancellara was coming up behind him, it really was quite amazing to see. And it'll be interesting to know whether or not, once we get to the next few climbs of the day, whether or not Chavanel has got the power in his legs to actually stay with Cancellara, because he will get caught.
Well, we've got the Muur, which is hill number 7.
Ja, dat is de hele dag, hè. Niet dat Ronde zit hier, ja.
I think we have to work a little bit now, because when it's already 1 minute, we have to in Brakel, ten Bosse, 30 seconds, not more, otherwise it's finished.
Yes, the voice of Peter van Petergem, he should know, he's won this race a number of times. He's saying, I think we should work now. I think that it's already too late, if you ask my opinion.
Well, it is too late, because there's not very many men in this sport of professional cycling can pull this man back when he's on a mission, and he is on a mission. Look how he hugs the side of the road there. He's taking the shortest corners that is possible for this man, making sure he doesn't go too close to the edge, where there's usually a few number of small stones that can cause a flat tyre, but he's handling his bike perfectly. He's just edging away towards the front group there, the front leader Sylvain Chavanel. He's down to 19 seconds. They're all asking for a little bit of help in this group. Bozenhagen says, oh no mate, I'm too young, I'm only here to learn.
Well, if he tries to carry them away, I'm not sure whether he's got the legs left now. He's only 23.5 years of age, in fact, Bozenhagen. But again, they've got Bjorn Lukemans, who rode tremendously in this race last year, a most underrated rider, but always comes good in his home classics in that group.
No, he is a great talented rider, and I think BMC Racing will be extremely happy to have Greg van Avermaet in this break. They had said before the start of the day that he was one of the team leaders alongside Alessandro Ballan and George Hincapie, and a little while.
He'll do it as he can. I'm just wondering if we're going to hear from John Waters.
Tyler and Hussler have to wait riding. I think Thor with one guys of Lotto have to ride full.
That's Van Petergem there saying Heinrich Hausler must ride now and try and get some help from the Lotto squad. Everybody, desperate moments.
Well, that's probably the only way they can turn the tables. This is the Volkenberg, an average gradient of 8.1%, 12.8% at its maximum. It's only about 600 meters long, but it's probably just about long enough for Fabian Cancellara to come across the gap. And look at the crowd. The crowd here, Phil, although they want a Belgian to win, they know how to appreciate a great cycling athlete like Cancellara.
Well, this has turned out to be a superb ride for the Frenchman in Belgian team colours here, Chavanel. But his worst dream is about to be realised. Cancellara is stomping up the Volkenberg. This is the group that launched him into space, and here he comes now. Just look at his tempo. And Chavanel knows he is coming now. There's no point in trying to hold him off. He's going to have to do his best to hold him, and that in itself is a big task now.
That is a very big ask, but he's being sensible, Chavanel. He's swinging over to the right-hand side, just recuperating a bit because he knows just as he gets caught, he's going to have to dig deep to try and get involved with Fabian Cancellara. He may well even try and participate in sharing the pacemaking at the front, but then the team orders might come and say, no, don't work with Cancellara because Tom Boonen is in the group behind.
Well, absolutely, and in fact that would have to be the tactic now, Paul. No more sharing of the pace. Sit in the slipstream, save 30% of your energy, and hope you can hold this man on the remaining 3 climbs to come.
Philippe Gilbert, Phil, has just come across the gap with the front end of the main field. He's the one now putting the pressure onto this bike race. As we said earlier, he was caught out a little while back because he was at the wrong end of the bike race with a flat tyre when the decision was being made. He's seen the move, and has he got the legs to come across this next gap of 38 seconds?
A daunting prospect. Look at the face now of Cancellara here. Still one of great determination, the Swiss man, as he keeps his tempo. It doesn't look as though they're going to get across. 38 seconds, 32 kilometres to go, but everybody has been totally committed to this race for over an hour now. And the irony is the teammate of Chavanel has put Cancellara in a situation to win.
Well, the big situation now is there's 2 big questions, Phil. Will Sylvain Chavanel actually work at all with Cancellara, and how are they going to pull this race back together? It's going to take a concerted effort of 2 or 3 teams working together if they want to pull back Cancellara.
Greg Van Avermaet flicks his arm there, says give me a hand. Thomas Volkler is here as well. He has ridden a terrific race. It's hurting now, just take a look at his face, but he's still at the front end of this race.
No, well, they don't give up. They've got it pegged on the left-hand side. The Kop van der Wegstrijd, the front end of the bike race. Cancellara and Chavanel on the right-hand side, the men on the defensive. They're all seeing the man that they feared would attack off the front of this bike race, and they're all now trying to figure out what is the next move.
Well, we're all assuming that Cancellara is the Cancellara of 1 year ago. He won the Classic E3 last year. He then won the Tour of Flanders. He then won Paris-Roubaix. He's already won the Classic E3 this year. Is he going to continue that trend with a victory today?
Fresh drink. And the way this is happening now, Fletcher has seen this. Once Fletcher saw the main field start to slow down, he thought, this is a time for me to go.
Chased by Volkler. Volkler is riding like a man inspired.
Should have spare drinks on board to help him out.
So we're looking here now at Cancellara driving on. He'll get his drink, and so too Chavanel will shadow him. As you can see now, he's working to orders. He can't help Cancellara, even though second place would be a terrific result for Chavanel. It's all about Tom Boonen, who's in the group behind. Tom Boonen, the man who launched his rival into the attack.
Well, Chavanel is just looking at the back wheel now of Fabian Cancellara, and he knows how hard this man can go on a climb, and despite the fact he's ridden a long way on his own to be caught by Fabian Cancellara, he's got to figure out in his mind right now, how can he stay with Cancellara on the slopes of the climb like the Muur de Grammont or even the Bosberg.
3 climbs are still to go, 54 seconds now the gap.
Well, the idea is saying that he wants to see the other teams working because he reckons that Tom Boonen can still come across on the Muur de Grammont. I'm not quite convinced about that one.
No, neither am I, but we'll see, because Tom...
That's the one that every bike rider fears, the Muur de Grammont. Now, they need to catch him before the Muur de Grammont, because if they don't, I don't think they'll see him ever again.
2 riders in the front. The gap has shown its first reversal for a couple of kilometres now. 57 seconds. There's the Leopard Trek team car. At last he gets his drink. He's been wanting it for a little while as he now continues towards the climb. This is good roads, this one. The next one isn't. The next one is an absolute brute and very, very steep. Chavanel just sitting there now. I'm not too sure how he's going. We simply don't know. Take that anyway. Because Boonen is in a chase group. But how good is Boonen going now?
Well, it's not really just about Tom Boonen. You've got to think about the other men in that group behind. Philippe Gilbert, George Hincapie, they all still want a chance of winning the Ronde van Vlaanderen, but they're going to have to work. They're going to have to form alliances on the road if they think they can pull back this man Spartacus. And it's a one team, and I'm amazed. This is a great team. American team, BMC Racing. There's Swiss bicycles. There's Alessandro Ballan right in the middle there, and they want to do something special.
Well, one thing's for sure now, as George Hincapie comes up to the left of our picture again. Boy, how does that man relish these Belgian classics? He's had 15 years of enjoying these classics, and this is one he would dearly love to win. He looks over his shoulder. He's got a great team around him now. They are all here. When we get to the climb of the Muur de Grammont with about...
And if he would send a couple of riders to the front, the team that surprises me in their absence is Omega Pharma Lotto, because their man Philippe Gilbert, I reckon, has got the legs to get over the Muur de Grammont. They should be at the front, contributing to the pacemaking with Team BMC Racing.
Oh, it's been such a good race, though. Everybody has given all of their strength. These incredible professional cyclists today. Quicker by something like 3 hours than any of the fun riders, so-called, yesterday, who rode the course. Some 20,000 cyclists did this route. Vogler takes some more food out of his pocket. Might be very vital, as we've got an attack by Stijn de Volder. He's had his ups and downs today, but he's lifted the pace now.
Oh, he certainly has. Another man who, although he wears the champion of Belgium's jersey as the road champion, he's also been the champion in the individual time trial, and he too now has got a little bit of pride for Belgium on his shoulders.
Well, this de Volder drives on here now. Somebody has to... Trial in motion here of Fabian Cancellara. He is 22 kilometres from a repeat victory. He still has a problem with Chavanel, but the gap is holding it completely at 1 minute here, and they don't seem to know how to reduce it. We're heading towards the Muur de Grammont. We are going to hear the biggest explosion ever on that climb, because they've got to launch there. Anybody with any strength must leave the peloton on the Muur de Grammont.
Well, it's 4.5 kilometres now to the start of the climb of the Muur de Grammont, and going through the mind of Fabian Cancellara is, what do I do with Sylvain Chavanel? He's a great bike rider. He's a very strong bike rider. I rode across the gap to catch him, but I don't want to ride into the city of Merbeek with him on my back wheel, because there's...
So there we are, as the riders now thread the way here through the lanes. There's the massive cars behind every one of those drivers, hoping somebody can do something about Fabian Cancellara. He takes us now towards the Muur de Grammont.
In French, and the race goes straight over the top there, right in the middle.
Right in the middle, you saw the little spire of the chapel. That's the chapel Muur. That's where we're headed to. It is as steep as it looks, up a cobble climb. It has been immortalised by this very race. Many riders over the years have launched the winning attack there. Is that where Cancellara will rid himself of the man behind him, Sylvain Chavanel? If Chavanel is unhitched, I fear he'll be picked up by the chase. The race will be for second.
No, it certainly was. The team car comes up alongside there. In fact, the team manager in the car today, riding alongside Bjarne Riis, is Torsten Smit, a former extremely good sprinter from Germany. But they will be on tenterhooks right now to figure out whether or not Cancellara has still got that power to get rid of Chavanel on the slopes of this climb. And in fact, look at the time gap. It's starting to tumble down a fraction. Most of that because of the work done by BMC.
And also maybe Cancellara. This is the main street in Gerardsbergen. The far end, we turn left and go over the mountain. It may be Cancellara is slowing down just that little bit to prepare himself for what he knows must come now, and that is an attack on the wall. At the top end of the street is where we make the left turn, and then there's only one way out of this town. It's over the top.
Well, it's over the town square. The town square is made up of cobbles. Then after the town square, they start to climb up. And once it gets steep, you take a right-hand turn and you're on the fabled cobblestones of the Muur de Grammont. This is the town square and a massive VIP tent.
This is the end of the main road in Gerardsbergen. Turn left. We are on the Muur de Grammont now, the penultimate climb. And Cancellara, the gap is down to 40 seconds. There's a terrific chase on behind. It is everybody. We're going to rename this 95th, the Tour de Flanders, the Battle of the Wall, because that's what it's come down to.
And that is exactly where the wall is. You can see the main field, Phil. They are in the streets of Gerardsbergen. They're going over the town square, the place right in the middle where there's a massive big TV screen where most of these people will be watching and witnessing the finish. But what they're wondering now is what's going to happen on the slopes of the wall. Here is the left-hand turn. It starts to dig up right in front of you. The gap's down to 27 seconds. Cancellara very shortly will take the famous right-hand bend onto the slopes of the very difficult cobbles.
As that attack by Tom Bonen tempted Cancellara to attack too early to win the race. That is becoming a possibility now as the free-for-all starts on the bottom of the climb. The gap is down to 19 seconds now. Gilbert is moving up on the left of our picture.
Well, Postuma in the middle now. He's trying to set something up for his man, Last Boom. Pippo Pozzato for Katusha over on the right-hand side. Tom Bonen is there, and look at this. The gap is always coming down. It's 10 seconds. When they go around the corner, this is going to be race all together.
From a done deal to a huge question mark now. 11 seconds is the gap. The Muur de Grammont is playing a huge role this year in the Tour of Flanders.
Now has Fabien Cancellara been playing a game with the main field, and will he go again as Philippe Gilbert pulls himself back into this race?
Well, this is amazing. It was a done deal, and now it most certainly is not. 15 kilometres from the top. Chavanel has gone up the mountain on the wheel of Cancellara, who I think is in serious trouble here. After all that, it has reverted back to the chasers. Cancellara's face giving nothing away here, unlike Chavanel behind. Gilbert is there right behind him.
Balan is there, Fletcher's there, Tom Bonen is there, all of the big names. Even George Hincapie is in about 12th position. Now Cancellara, this time last year, he rode away from everybody, and now he's turning up the pressure once again, Phil.
Well, I've never seen a Tour of Flanders like this. I've never seen a peloton catch up on the Muur de Grammont, and this man refuses to give up. He's lifted the pace again, and we've seen so many of the top riders, including Bonen, Johan Museeuw.
Voor zijn haar. Pozzato. Dat is Ivanov. Stigmas. Clara, Paula.
That's the last climb and it's coming up.
It certainly is, and we're now looking at Alessandro Ballan coming up to the front. Just behind him, Cancellara trying to figure out now what's the next tactic. What am I going to do next in a race like this? And Philippe Gilbert will be extremely happy because he probably has got the best punch coming out of this group.
Well, these 5 riders, there's 4 more trying to reach them. Surely nobody else can get... Straight road, it's in the woods, it is a difficult climb at this stage of the race, and once over the top, of course, you're on your road to home.
Well, you've 12 kilometres, but the way this race is, it's thrown up some strange permutations this afternoon, as again somebody's trying to sneak off the front of that leading group of 5 riders. And Geraint Thomas is coming back into this race here with George Hincapie.
He's bringing George back up to the action here. Geraint Thomas and George Hincapie, I think they're pretty good friends when they're not racing against each other. Team Sky, Team BMC. George is crossing the gap. What a great ally he would be to Alessandro Ballan if he can reach them.
Well, I have to say, considering the amount of work that Geraint Thomas, Phil, has done for Juan Antonio Fletcher, theoretically he shouldn't still be in the game. But here he is with George Hincapie riding across the gap. Now, if George gets into this group, he's going to...
Bosberg is hier het groepje met Thomas. Inderdaad, en dat is voor die erbij. En dan komt Silvanel daarop te gaan, maar het is beter voor iedereen. Cancellara came over. Cancellara.
Sprint he had.
Yes, he did. And let's remember too, that's around about the age almost of Geraint Thomas. We're looking at the face of the leaders here. On the right is Fabian Cancellara now. This group is highly select. Greg van Avermaet is still here. A chase group has developed and George Hincapie is here.
Ja, dat hij nog maar door was. Felix, hoe greedy.
Well, BMC are in a very nice position here this afternoon because they've actually not only got Alessandro Ballan, Greg van Avermaet not too far out of the picture, but coming back into the picture, big old George Hincapie.
Well, this has been a remarkable race all the way down, so befitting the 95th edition of the Ronde. But there is no outstanding rider now, and there's no sign of what Cancellara is thinking or feeling. He didn't look surprised or disappointed on the climb when all these riders joined him. It's almost as if he's just sticking to...
Cavendish.
He's saying to himself, I can still win this race.
Well, he's just trying to figure out a new permutation if at all possible, and look at that. In fact, Geraint Thomas has come back into this race with Juan Antonio Fletcher.
Shot as we climb the Bosberg, 12 kilometres to go. Are these the death throes from Philippe Gilbert? Last chance to rid himself of the group.
No, this is the move that Philippe Gilbert has been planning for a whole year to see whether or not he had the power to get out of this pack. This is a good move by him, and they're not responding behind, and Gilbert has hit them at just the right time, and it's Alessandro Ballan who's starting to take up the chase behind.
Well, I think they're responding, but they can't go any quicker, Paul, at the moment. Ballan has found his legs, though, and he's starting to close it down. Gilbert, those cobblestones are sending aches up those big thighs of his. Can he cope, keep the pressure on over the top and then settle down? He's opening a little bit of a gap. Trouble at the back. Cancellara is in desperate trouble and looking for help, as the champion of last year may have misjudged the distance this.
Well, they said, Phil, this was Fabian Cancellara's race to lose. They forced him to attack a long way out from the finish line, and I think right now he's paid for the generosity that he's put into this race this afternoon, because he in not the same position as he was last year. This man is in Fabian Cancellara's position from 12 months ago. Philippe Gilbert.
At 11 kilometres to go now, Gilbert has played his cards. The man who's finished third the last 2 years knows now he's got to win, and he's got to be alone to do it, as he now moves clear. Ballan is going to reorganise the chase, I think.
Well, now is the time for Philippe Gilbert to give everything that he's ever had in the sport of professional cycling into those legs of his.
Well, this is the...
Staat er nog net op. Ballon, hè? En Luc mag Michel van El. Die Cancellara. En goed zet hier. Goed zet hier van Afman. Kom on! Laat je alsjeblieft. Laat je alsjeblieft. Vanaf net 2 uur hoeven mee te kijken. Hey Titi, allez, allez! Terry.
Staat er een beetje wind vandaag. 10 kilometer nog. Montage tussen Karel tussen Hobbit en Mensen.
Hey, kom on, Lars! Oh, Lars, hey, ze is ook wel weer goed zo, maar onze bestuur gewoon begin achter de helling staan.
Langeveld en Hinkepie, dat zijn de mannen hier achteraan de koers. De mannen die
ziet ze bij Giro of heeft de helling in onder.
En dan vooraan is toch de zijn we
Hij de volrollen zien.
9-second advantage over a group now which will be prepared to organise the chase. Ballan, Chavanel, I think, will start to collaborate and see if they can pull that man back.
Well, this is an incredibly select group now. Loikemans is the other rider who has come across here. They haven't mentioned Sheerlinks, but he's here. There they are. So we've got Sheerlinks, Cancellara, Ballan, Chavanel, Loikemans. They are the 5 riders trying to cross to Philippe Gilbert. Gone is Tom Bonen, who started all these troubles in the first place. But in hindsight, it may well have destroyed Cancellara, because it forced Cancellara to go too soon.
He went a long way, about 47 kilometres from the finish was his move, and you've got to be a special guy to do something like that. Philippe Gilbert right now is pegged at 10 seconds, but it's an organised group behind him. I wouldn't like to be in the team car, Phil, because I bet they're extremely nervous.
So this is Cancellara in the chase group. Philippe Gilbert, the figure we didn't expect to see on his own not half an hour ago. But he's giving it all now. A man has won 41 races in his career that began back in 2003. But this would be, I think, and he's won some good ones, Paul, this would be the biggest win of his life.
Well, this is the one that he wants. There's 2 races in his career, Phil, that he really dearly wants to win. And of course, one is Liège-Bastogne-Liège, because as far as the French-speaking Belgians are concerned, that is their most beautiful classic. However, all Belgians want to win this one, the Tour of Flanders. If he can do that this afternoon, he really is going to go down in the record books. But the gap is down to 6 seconds, and they are working well in the chase group.
Well, he's managed 2 fourths in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He's had 2 thirds in the Tour of Flanders. Is he going to make it first today? He will get immense support here in the finishing area in Ninova Meerbeke, as he now knows he's totally committed. This is it. There's no going back on it, and just don't look over your shoulder.
Well, it's now just 7 seconds, and I think he's gone a little bit too early, and he doesn't have the power to pull back those, to stay away from those riders.
We are looking now at Philippe Gilbert as he dangles by a scant 7 seconds with 9 kilometres to go in the 95th Tour of Flanders. And they're going to catch him. He's got Staf Schierlings, Fabian Cancellara, Alejandro Balán, Sylvain Chavanel and Bjorn Leukemans are putting him back in his place at about 8.5 kilometres from the finish.
Well, as a non-gambling man, I wouldn't really want to go out and take a gamble now on who's going to win the Tour of Flanders this afternoon, because it could go any which way you want.
Neither would I. From an outstanding odds-on favourite to win, you might get better odds on Cancellara now. So they are all together now, and there are 9 kilometres left to run, with your guess as good as mine as to who will win today.
Well, Cancellara, he seems to have recovered somewhat, a little flick of the wrist, and he has got the ability to put in a fine sprint. But Phil, when you've worked as hard as he has in a race like this, it's difficult to sprint at the end of the stage.
And here comes the next train, and George Hincapie is in this group as they come up towards the leaders. So too Juan Antonio Fletcher. This is a whole new combination at 8 kilometres to go.
Well, I just remember, Phil, just looking at Twitter this morning, I just looked at the comment made by Cadell Evans. He was looking forward to a very rare day off and watching television, motorsport to begin with, and then he said something rather strange. He said, I've got a special interest this afternoon in the Tour of Flanders, and now we know why. Two men in the break.
The 2 men we expected have both made it, and it's been such a hard race to stay in touch with the leaders today. Cancellara, the man to beat, over, looking a very lonely figure on the left of our race, but what an absolutely brilliant race this has been.
Chavanel looking over his shoulder, he wants to know what's the next move for him this afternoon. Just looking there at Tom Bonen sitting on the back of this group, he must be feeling a little bit more comfortable, because he almost turned the race upside down and ruined it for his teammate Chavanel. Now he's back in with a chance of a win.
Well, I think, and I only think, that we've got 12 riders together right now, but I think 6 riders have joined 6 riders, as we now have 12 riders at the front, the strong men of a really hard-fought Ronde van Vlaanderen. This is Greg Van Avermaet, grits his teeth again.
Well, Staf Schierlings is probably, and I don't mean this in any derogatory way, the odd man out. We've followed him for many years, Phil, as we see this move now coming from Balán.
Oh, it is Balán who started the move, the man who won this race a few years ago now, but has found his legs again with Team BMC, another determined favourite, giving it his best shot. But it looks as though it's not going to be good enough again. Remember, there are no more hills now. If you take this down to the sprint, goodness knows which way it will go. We are now 6 kilometres from the finish as Alessandro Balán, a former winner of this race, looks over his shoulder. There are now 12 riders together, and amongst the riders who've just joined us include George Hincapie and Geraint Thomas and Juan Antonio Fletcher.
Well, sitting on the back of the group, of course, one of the best sprinters in the group is Tom Bonen, but it might not come down to the sprint here this afternoon, as another move goes over the top and Tom Bonen covers it.
It can never go down to the sprint, surely, as they'll throw attack after attack. This is now Nicky Nuyens who's trying, monitored there by Tom Bonen, who knows, oh, it's not Tom Bonen who's got there in second place at all.
Chavanel.
Chavanel is still doing his job.
Bonen sitting about 5th or 6th position. He's just waiting now to see whether or not he's got the sprint left at the end of this race. He's going to gamble on it being a sprint, but a lot of riders, look at this. Geraint Thomas makes the move now. He's covered by Sylvain Chavanel.
The man from Wales, they've never produced a cyclist of this calibre from Wales, as now Geraint Thomas goes. Remember, it's 50 years to the day. The only British rider to win this race was Tom Simpson, and now Geraint Thomas has been superb today.
And watch out, Phil, because Geraint Thomas, coming from a track background, has got a very good chance of causing the surprise sprint. But Fletcher now takes over after the work done by his young teammate.
That's the word. He's attacked. This is a big attack by Juan Antonio Fletcher now. Determination. These are desperate men. They haven't got the sprint to cope with the likes of Bonen or even Cancellara. So they're trying to break it up. They're running out a road. 5 kilometres to go.
Nervous moments now for all of these riders. Fabian Cancellara thinking, why did I do that? Why did I not have as much power as I did last year? As Bonen now starts to feel more and more confident as he comes up to the finish line with 5 kilometres left to go. Looks over his shoulders into the face of George Hincapie, who's made the junction here. Former national champion of the United States and a great ambassador for American cycling.
12 riders as I make it. It could be 13 here. But everyone has given 100% of the effort, so now it's who can stay that little bit longer that will mix it today. Is this Lars Bohm or is it Lisa who's going?
Looks to me like
neither. It's Langeveld who's got up there.
Yep, and Fletcher taking up the pace. Lukemans are pulling off, and this is a bad move if you allow a guy to go clear that close to the finish.
Well, it's a very, very good move by Langeveld, the best so far in the last few kilometres to open any gap, but it's being shut down straight away, and it's BMC doing the work, and it's Alessandro Bolano gets across. Everybody looking as if somebody else is supposed to make the move. Here he comes again, Fabian Cancellara, and that's caused a panic. They're all racing after his wheel. They're like snapping turtles now.
Well, they certainly are, but Chabanel has still got something in that box of his as he comes across to the wheel of Cancellara, and grappling to get on the back is Nick Nuyens.
Well, the Belgians are determined to make the 95th theirs. If it kills them on the way they're riding, it might well do that, because they've chased everything today. They're 3 kilometres to go. Chabanel has been absolutely superb.
I'd give him the title of honorary Flandrian here this afternoon, and that's a fair title for a Frenchman to have, because he has ridden a great race. Cancellara still feel they will not help him. Flick of the wrist there saying, come on, let's work together, but they're all looking round waiting to see how the race is developing.
Well, Paul, win or lose, Cancellara has been superb. Here comes Gilbert now. They're all at it, followed by Balan again. Then it looks as though we've got Langeveld trying to get on the train too.
Well, this may well be the move. They need to respond immediately to a move like this, because Cancellara now is starting to smell the victory. He knows if he wants to win, he's got to get away from this group, because correct. I don't think he can beat Tom Bonen in the sprint, but he could probably handle Chabanel and Nick Nuyens.
Well, they've allowed him to prise open the gap. And Chabanel now is prepared to work with Cancellara. Nuyens is the big danger for me. He can sprint.
No, he certainly can, and that would be good for Belgium to get themselves a sprint, but there's hardly any cooperation coming from Cancellara. As you can see, Team BMC sitting at the front of that group, trying to pull it all back together.
Well, I've got, I don't think in my records, I don't remember Nuyens ever getting in the top 10 finish. Oh, I beg his pardon, because he was second 2 years ago in the Tour of France. 2008 he was second, Nuyens. But they're getting so twitchy here. They're like Punch and Judy looking over the shoulders at the race behind. This is the race. This is the podium. And Cancellara, whatever he gets, has been absolutely brilliant today. We've seen him almost destroyed, and he's come back out of the dustbin and done it again.
Well, that's the power of this man, the courage of Fabian Cancellara. He really is looking for the victory here this afternoon. Now there's another move coming across. That's Juan Antonio Fletcher and Tom Bonen.
The moves are following. These are now desperate moves. We're inside 2 kilometres to go. Last year's winner, Cancellara, not the runaway. There'll be no time to show his little pocket mascot to his daughter this time, as he did up the home straight a year ago. But he's still got there as we look to the 1 kilometre banner. 3 riders, 1 Frenchman, a Belgian and a Swiss rider going for gold.
Well, they are halfway across the gap. There is Juan Antonio Fletcher. They've gone inside of the final kilometre. 1 kilometre left to go. Cancellara is trying to make it the double. He's trying to get that second victory in the Tour of Flanders, while Nuyens, Phil, is just sitting there. Watch out for Nuyens in the Saxo Bank jersey in second position.
Well, Cancellara won't ease off those pedals. He knows they'll be on him in a flash. They're preparing for the right turn. They take the right turn. They are lining up for the finish. Desperate moments to cross the gap.
Well, it's not. It's Tom Bonen. He's seen the possibility and he wants to make the junction before the start of this finishing sprint. Cancellara has seen that. Cancellara is now picking it up because he wants to get the win too.
Bonen hooks up, he's not quite on, he's just off our picture in fact, but he's not going to make it. Cancellara has seen this. Now that is how to become a champion, because Nuyens has gone over him. Nick Nuyens is going to hold off. A little bit of a kick there from Cancellara, but it will be on the line. Nuyens, and I think in second place will be Chavanel, and I think in third place there will be Fabian Cancellara. Well, Tom Bonen tried to make amends in the end, but he got on the back and Cancellara saw him coming.
Well, if it had been another couple of seconds, Phil, then it would have been a different picture, I think, there, because Bonen, all he needed was a pull.
Still a big group just arrived here. It wasn't really a sprint, but Christophe Goddard of AG2R brought them home. And that's the reaction in the car. Bjarne Riis, he's almost looking emotional there now, because he's watching it on television. He cannot believe it. Steady on, boys, no hands off the wheel. That is a huge result for Saxo Bank, it really is. I've never really got to the bottom as to why Leopard Trek almost en masse walked out on Bjarne Riis. They set to form this new team, but it seemed a very strange...
Shit! Met. Zodat hij het echt de kans laten liggen. Godverdomme.
67 times, 66 times with Flandrian riders. Nick Nuyens pulled that one off big, and that really was a tremendous result for Nick Nuyens, and a great result too for the Saxo Bank Sungard team, who saw virtually all of their riders boycott them and move over to form Leopard Trek this year. And what's happened? Bjarne Riis has landed the winner of the Tour of Flanders. That is a huge result for Bjarne Riis, the Danish manager. And Nick Nuyens gets the victory at nearly 31 years of age. He will be back in May. Coming up, there's the man who's done everything he could possibly do. Last time we saw him in that situation was when he tried to win the road race in Switzerland 2 years ago, the World Professional Road Race at that. Here comes what is not a very animated sprint, but it's taken out nicely by Tyler Farrer there. Well done, Tyler. Sweeps up from the rest of that group. He's had a very good day. They did all they could do, and it was the sort of race that could have gone so many ways today, because everybody gave it their best shot, and it was the one that worked in the end that counted. And after all, it was still Cancellara's huge effort that decided it, even though Nick Nuyens will be the man you'll see on the winner's podium in a few minutes' time. Tremendous result for Nuyens. Bad luck for Fabio Cancellara, fabulous Cancellara, but what a way to lose your title. He was absolutely superb today. That's what winning a year ago does for you, and he's still got to dream of Paris-Roubaix next week. Tremendous ride, can't say any more than that for Cancellara. A true champion. But in amongst it here, I should imagine down there is probably Nick Nuyens. There he is. He's already won once this year. He won the race across Flanders, the Dwars door Vlaanderen race, just a couple of weeks ago. He only had one victory last year, and that's in the Tour of Austria, where he won the 5th stage. But now he has produced an incredible performance to win the Tour of Flanders. That's completed for him a career which started back in 2002. Now, we're waiting to make little room for him to get into the finishing area here. He read that one right, getting away in the last couple of kilometres. I still haven't got confirmation of the result, but my eyes sort of gave me Chavanel just in second place. Cancellara would be in third, Bonen in fourth. But they'll give us that very shortly.
Part of Bjarne Riis in this victory?
I think that change of team was really important for me. They gave me immediately a lot of confidence. Of course, there's the person of Bjarne Riis, but also the other people, sport directors and all the staff, the riders. I just feel really good in the group, and for me, that's the most important thing to perform.
Thanks very much. Congratulations. One question also for the big favorite of the day, third on the podium, Fabian Cancellara. You were so close. What's your first reaction to what happened after an unbelievable race with the breakaway and then getting caught at the wall and then the finish, the sprint?
Ja,
even when you're super strong, you're beatable. I think that's I knew it always since on the beginning, from the start. But I think on the end, I mean, we tried with the team. We done the max what we could. In the end, I mean, on the muur until to the finish line, I mean, it was just like I was so dead on the end. I had so much cramps on the end also, and on the finish line, I mean, before we came to the finish here, when we went with Nuyens and then Silva, I said to myself, hey, I was already with Silva in the front, and yeah. And then I have seen also Bonen coming from the back, and I haven't really saw how much meters it was, but I was thinking maybe the other one's on the wheel, and I just opened the sprint, but I opened it too early. But on the end, I think that's the race how it is, and I think on the end I should be still happy about this third place, because to defend again, to win here was really, really hard. All been racing against my team, or been racing against me, and with this result, we still can be happy about it.
Thanks very much for a great race.